Hello Internet, it's Epiphany back with another video. So I'm going to pick up where I was cut off from my last video talking about NPCs and extras in terms of me being the main character in my own life. So first is the term NPC, and we do hear this one a lot too, in the way that it stems originally from role-playing games, and the characters that are there, but they are computer generated, really is what it is. So when we're using this term NPC and we're talking about other humans, other people, I don't really love it as a term because it kind of implies that not everyone is capable of independent, intelligent thought. Now, not everyone is capable in the sense that not everyone has practiced with it or does it on purpose, but everyone has the potential to notice this at any time. I think the movie Free Guy by or with Ryan Reynolds is a really good example of this, where at any point we may realize that the life that we're living feels too robotic or dictated by something other than ourselves. If we go back to the earlier videos I made about the power seat and realizing that decisions that we make lead to our happiness or unhappiness, and that it's up to us to make those choices, first by recognizing that fact on itself. This is the awakening of the NPC character to realize that they don't have to, go to that same job or do that same thing or hang out with those same people or whatever over and over like Groundhog Day, right? By realizing that you can make different choices, this changes an inanimate object. I'm thinking Pinocchio as well, right? That's where you become a real boy, right? And the strings are gone. You're no longer making decisions thoughtlessly or blindly or with any kind of allegiance to a power seat other than your own feeling of feeling good and feeling happy. So I don't like to think of the other people as NPCs. When I'm talking about projections and the interplay between my universe, which is the story that is happening with me as the main character, and other people, I like to think of these people more as extras, right? It's like you're just that woman with the blanket in the corner. If every single person that I came across was cast and scripted the way that a screenplay would be, right? This doesn't mean that you're not a person, you're still a person, and in that person's life, woman with a blanket, right? In her life, she's still the main character, and there's a term for this called sonder, and it's basically this recognition that every person being their own center of their own universe, right? A good example is being sitting on a bus or being at the playground and you see a kid run off and say mommy, and you realize that that's a different other kid with a different other mommy, and their relationship and their interaction is just as important to them as mine is to me. It's quite a profound discovery or a noticing anytime that this happens. So anyway, to personify other people a little bit more, I like to call them extras in my life, which means maybe I see them this one time and they had this very minimal role to play. But what happens when I do have an interaction with that person? It's the collision of two different universes, even just for a brief moment, because I am the center of my universe and they are the center of theirs. And when we collide, when we, meet or interact or even just see each other, make eye contact in the grocery store, now we have suddenly sparked the potential for new life. And what I mean by this is maybe I now, in my game, with my view and my projection, because I've noticed that person, now I have cast them as an extra in my story. So whatever I saw them do that made me notice them, right? That's probably what I'm going to associate them with in that role. So let's say I'm crossing the street and someone driving a car doesn't see me and doesn't stop until they're right up against me and they honk at me, right? So in my story now, when I think of that person, I think of them as maybe guy who didn't stop and then honked at me, right? And they might see me in that moment, that same collision, and now another version of myself has been created, in a sense, in their projected view of me, and they're thinking, woman who stood in the road when I was driving, right? So that's how different versions of ourselves populate in the stories or the universes of other people, and how those other people now pop up as characters in our world. So once you realize this, you also realize that every person you've ever had any interaction with has a potential version of you as well in their universe. They see you in a certain way based on whatever it was, that interaction or that series or that, few years of interaction or whatever it is. They have formed a picture of you, a character, a prototype, a stereotype, an archetype, you could say as well, for storytelling, right? Of you in their heads. What this means is, you realize as well that they might not see you the same way that you see yourself, or the same way that other people who know you might see you, right? And maybe this is because you act different ways in different places, which of course I'm not trying to judge that. That's just a fact. I act differently when I'm with my kid at playgroup than I do when I'm with my husband's coworkers at a dinner party, right? There's nothing wrong with this. What this is just to show you is how other people may have perceptions of you that may be true in those moments, but aren't necessarily reflective of who you believe yourself to be as a whole person. Because of course I don't see myself just as, guy's wife at dinner party, or as other playground mom, right? I see myself as me, and I see these as activities of my life, and I might look a different way or act a different way in those scenes, right? But to me, I'm still able to see myself as the whole person that I am. And it can be challenging at times because we realize that other people can never truly see us with the same clarity that we see ourselves. This is fine because they're busy seeing themselves as the center of their own world. And why should they think that you're so important that they need to know everything about you, right? That's not really how it's meant to go. So what can happen though is we can, consciously or not, we can start to, let's say, animate the puppet versions or the projected versions that other people have of us. And this is where awareness of this fact can help us to retain our own energy. Now, this probably sounded like a big leap. So let me give it a small, easy example. So I was out with my family one weekend, and we pulled up to a rest stop to get a sandwich and use the toilet. And my husband, when he parked, was very close to the line, if not over the line on my side. So when I got out to try to get our son from the car seat, I was struggling to fit in that space. So just jokingly, I said over to my husband, "Oh, like, nice park job, asshole," right? A little bit less than that, but in a joking way. But what I didn't realize is that in the car next to us, the person was sitting there at the wheel and heard me say that and didn't see that I was talking through the car to my husband, right? So she kind of looked at me and she's like, "Well, I was just about to leave." And I realized what had happened, that I'd offended her. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't talking to you." Now, that's an example of my universe and her universe colliding in this way. And now, sparked from this moment, I can imagine, in her view, I am now this mean lady who didn't give her a chance to move her car, right? I came off as the bad guy in that situation. I get it, right? And that could be where it ends. If I choose to admit that I came off wrong, she took it the wrong way, probably. I did say sorry, so I mended it as best I could. But here's where it starts to become a drain on your own self, is when you go home that night and you lay awake and you start thinking, "Oh, I can't believe I said that. I should have looked around me before I said anything. Now she thinks I'm an asshole," right? And what we're doing by that is we're taking our real energy, instead of me sleeping or, whatever else I could be doing with that time. I'm now taking energy and I'm diverting it to the projected version of her, because I'm aware that she thinks I'm an asshole. So now I'm thinking, "Oh my God, this is what she's thinking of me." Subconsciously, by worrying about it, fretting about it, and, wishing I could go back to that moment to say something different or whatever it could be, this is all actually causing more life force from me to be put into that projected version that she has of me. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, when you've known someone for a longer period of time, and when the energy exchange, right, the interactions and the communication and the meetups and so forth, when they are extended over a longer period of time, those energetic channels are a lot bigger, or they can, have a greater pull on you, even just that you may care more what someone thinks of you because you have this longer history or this deeper relationship with them. So what ends up happening is I'm my own center of my own universe. I know what I meant by what I said. I was watching, I saw that I wasn't the asshole. But if I spend time worrying, oh no, that's what they think of me, now I am, in a sense, animating that for them, right? So my parents might think that I'm this way because they watched me grow over my whole life, or my friends might think I'm this way. And as long as I'm worried about those things, worried that how do they perceive me? Is it true for who I believe myself to be? These are ways that energy starts to sort of siphon out of us into those projected versions. And we get stuck in this trap of wanting to prove who we are to other people. So, my ex probably thinks that I'm whatever. I wish that I could tell them that that's not really how it was. Or my ex boss must think this, right? And the worst is that usually we end up diverting the most energy to ex people who are not even in our life anymore. We worry about those interactions because we hope that those people have had a good impression of us, and we notice when maybe that hasn't been the case. But instead of focusing your energy on who you are today, and recognizing again that only you will ever truly know every aspect of who you are and how that comes together, we can find ourselves drained by sending all this energy out to characters who are not even us, in stories for people who are also not even us, right? And that's sort of a weird way to explain that the same concept, which is when we feel like we have to live up to other people's expectations of us in some way or another. It's like what I said in the projection video, is when we're trying to fix the way that other people see us, we tend to obscure the way that we see ourselves, right? We start thinking of ourselves as, oh, so and so thinks this of me, and that guy thinks this of me. And you start to wonder, am I those things? If people are thinking this of me, does that make me those things? And so it can be really complicated in terms of in the emotional response too, because you genuinely probably do want people to think well of you, right? But when you realize that even that itself is causing you to send energy out to versions of you in stories that aren't your story, it can explain why there's so much anxiety and stress and pressure, and why we feel so stuck on making decisions, because we don't realize that our happiness is the only one that truly matters if we're constantly trying to maintain the image that other people see of us. Now, at the end of the day, we might not even have any ability to impact how other people see us, because when they, just like us, are viewing everything through their own projection and through their own storytelling and through their own main character, if I'm the mean one to this person in their story, no amount of niceness from me is going to change that, because in their version of their story, my character, my extra character, is cast as the mean one. So that's all that they're ever going to see from it. I hope this makes sense. I feel like it's getting a little bit rambly, and this is why it's so challenging trying to talk about some of these things, because they just seem like the ideas are so big that it's hard to condense them down into a way that is coherent. But when we start to think about the way that we see ourselves and that other people see us, and most importantly, to realize that those are not ever going to be the same thing, we can choose how much energy we are really willing to send over to micromanaging the versions of us that other people have living in their virtual reality, in their projected reality, or in their I'm the center of my own universe reality. And at the end of the day, the best thing you can do, the most useful thing you can do with your own energy is just to remind yourself that only you can be truly happy with your own self. Only you can understand your own self. And that's not to say that we shouldn't try to be kind or try to be understanding or empathetic or anything. It's just at the end of the day, you don't want to spend energy trying to convince other people to see you in a certain way, because you could be using that energy just for literally anything else, and understanding yourself and living more authentically and chasing your own happiness. And eventually, it's going to become clear to someone, to people, when the life that you're living is so disjointed with the way that they see you or that someone they know sees you. It's going to just bring more awareness to the fact that we can't really ever judge someone else or know someone else. um, and if you really are concerned with the way that people see you, or this is something that's important to you, you just have to trust that by staying true to yourself, eventually the truth will show itself, right? If someone thinks that I'm, again, just a mean and terrible person, right, just from one little encounter with me, whereas people who see me all the time might have a completely different image, and I have a different image too. Which one is the most important to yourself, and which one do you put the most thought energy towards? And if you can't change how people see you, then the best thing you can do for yourself is just to stop worrying about that altogether. I'm going to leave it here, and we'll see if I end up posting this one. I'm feeling very all over the place with some of these ideas, and yeah, so I'll leave it here for today. Thanks for watching.